Hi, friends. This is Angela. Welcome to Homeschool Unrefined, the podcast where we keep homeschool simple, real, and fun. Today, we're dropping in a bonus mini episode for you. We found some goodies in the archives and thought you'd enjoy a fun surprise in your podcast feed. But first, we need your help. Word of mouth is still the best way to help a podcast grow, so we're calling on you, listeners, to spread the word about Homeschool Unrefined. We're growing, and we're so excited about that, but there are still lots of homeschool parents who haven't found us yet. One of the ways you can help people find us is by sharing us on social media. You know Instagram is our favorite spot on the internet, and it's where many new listeners discover us. So first things first, if you're not following us there, definitely go do that right now. We are at Homeschool Unrefined. Once you're following us, will you share us? Share our posts to your stories. Post about your favorite episodes. Tag your friends in our comments. Tell people why you love Homeschool Unrefined. Help people find us by sharing us. And be sure to tag us when you do. We'll share some of your sharing with our followers. Sharing is caring, after all, and it's a great way to connect with like-minded homeschool friends. Okay, thanks for helping us out. And now, here's a bonus mini episode. So today we are talking about how we fumble through conversations about world events with our kids.
Mm-hmm. And we do. We fumble through them.
We fumble. Fumble is a great word.
Exactly.
Because we don't really know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think both of us, I think, are very open with our kids.
Yes.
In general, in our regular everyday conversations. And so I like to be open about what's going on in the world too.
Exactly. But
it's really hard for me to figure out, exactly what to talk about with who and when.
Right.
I think that's really a challenge for me. So we wanted to talk about this not because we know what we're doing, because we don't.
Yes.
But just we want to talk about it to share our experiences and maybe get some ideas from each other.
Right. And I think that's really the whole point of our podcast, is not to impart all this knowledge and the right thing to do all the time. That's not why we even created this podcast. It was to create a dialogue, more of a dialogue, and just to go through things together. And so many topics that we think about, we often second guess ourselves and we think, well, we are not the experts of this topic. And then we have to remind ourselves that's not the point. The point is to just start the conversation and support each other through it, really. Right. So that's definitely the case for this topic, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think this topic is becoming more relevant, as our kids get older.
Right.
Because when your kids are young, you have the luxury of not having to talk about things, like scary or hard things with them.
Yeah.
But as they get older, I think for us as homeschoolers, we have this, we have a little bit of a luxury in that they're not in a school where they're going to hear this stuff as much as kids in public school.
Sure.
And so sometimes I get a little bit extra time
right.
to figure out how to talk to them about something that happened.
Yeah, and it definitely is a luxury, I think, that we get that. And I also think this takes a lot of wisdom. Having these conversations with kids, and it's not something that we can even just put into like 3 major points and then I think you're good, because every child is so different, even within our own families. And we're all different as parents. We're all different, and so we have sensitivities and needs that another parent or family might not have. And so I mean, there's really, I don't think, any specific right way to do this.
Yeah, I agree. So, what is one reason, Maren, why do you like to talk to your kids about what's going on in the world?
Okay, so I think these kind of tough topics can be very difficult to talk about, and yet because they don't always have a clear answer, it requires us as parents and our children to create maybe their own decisions about it. And that kind of thinking is what we need more of in this world.
Right. To be able to think critically about something without like having, your narrative or the narrative of whatever media they're looking at affecting that.
Yeah, or even, like when we're teaching them a specific subject, there might be right and wrong answers to things. And when we're fumbling through these conversations, there might not be a clear right or wrong answer. And I think that's just a good thing for our kids to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's not, rarely is there a right or wrong answer. I mean, really, rarely.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good for them to know that and be able to apply that to other subjects.
Exactly. Into their whole life.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And I feel lucky, like I said, as a homeschooler because I get to have a little bit of extra time sometimes. I mean, not always, because we are around other people and with other people and they're seeing other kids here and there. And so sometimes they hear things.
Which is, I think, great too.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's great too. But I do like that they can hear it first from me.
What I like about that is, I think traditionally what might happen to kids like my age, they'd spend more time out in the world talking about it and then a little bit of time at home. And what I prefer is that they do get out into the world and like learn about this stuff, and then we do a lot of processing at home.
Yeah.
And guiding through the thoughts and feelings and fears and what if questions that might go along with those things. So I do not want to block or completely shelter them from the world, but I also want to be a good filter for them.
Yeah.
Through all of it.
Yeah, that's great. So are there things that you don't talk to your kids about? Like, I mean, do you just,
well, yeah,
I mean, there's so much going on every day.
Yep.
Yeah. So there are some things you don't bring up, but do you tend to hit the highlights, or how do you do this?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think some kids just need to know more too. I think they're questioning what's going on out there. They're more aware of what's going on in the world, and so they have more questions and they want to know. And if they don't get those questions answered, they're not going to be satisfied, and they might actually get more worried and start thinking of terrible things in their head if we don't talk about it. And on the other hand, I think there are some kids who are joyfully unaware and maybe for a good reason. In some points in their life, it's probably good. Maybe they're not ready to take all of that in yet. They're very sensitive. They might just not be ready for all the truth that's out there. So, definitely. And then I think sometimes age comes into play too. My oldest daughter, I do talk with her about more of those things. And then, and my youngest daughter, who's probably the most sensitive too. So she's youngest and she's probably the most sensitive about these things. We talk less about events, and we might just talk about maybe one event or something that may have happened that wasn't so scary that will keep her up every night.
Yeah.
But then we really process it.
Yeah. Right.
So how about you?
I think it's much easier for me to talk to my kids about things that have happened in the past.
Yes.
Even if it's like a couple years old, than it is to talk about things that just recently happened. Because I have one who's real sensitive too, and I feel like if it's in the past, like there's a little bit of safety in that because you're a little bit more removed.
Yes.
And we've learned something since this thing happened, and it's kind of a part of history, And we talk about awful things that have happened in history.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
That's easier.
Yes. Sometimes it's easier when it's in the past, and even if they can't remember it personally themselves, it's a little bit easier to separate themselves from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but generally speaking, I would say I delay talking to my kids about horrible news things.
Yeah.
probably more than the average person. And like I said, we have a little bit of a luxury being homeschoolers, but I think in general, I want to preserve their childlike innocence.
Yeah.
And then I think there comes a time when I can kind of feel, and it's just like kind of a sense that I have, kind of a knowing that it's time to start talking about some of these things to my kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that has started to happen. My oldest is 12, and then I have a 10 and 8. And so my oldest daughter and I sometimes talk separately, just alone. And we've done that for a few years.
Right.
And that's really, actually, I feel really good about those times because we're kind of connecting. She feels special.
Yes.
And I feel like she's personally can handle it. But my younger two, it's been I'm still kind of delaying some stuff. I mean, we talk about some stuff that's not scary, but the scary things are really hard for me to talk about.
Yeah. Is it hard for them? Or is it hard for you?
I think both.
Probably
well,
both.
I have one child who's really sensitive.
Yeah.
So she has a hard time with anything scary.
Yeah.
She then will be up at night and thinking about it. And, I want her to feel safe.
Yes.
At least right now when she's still young. So.
This is where all the wisdom comes in. I mean, this is just, this is not a clear cut. There are no clear cut answers about when you start talking. But I think you just kind of get the feeling like, I think she's ready, or I think she's not ready yet.
Yeah.
I know in the book Simplicity Parenting, where, we did this book club on simplicity parenting last year.
Yep.
Last year.
Yep.
Kim John Payne has a whole chapter called Filtering Out the Adult World.
Yeah.
And he has some just great points in there. He talks about some kids that he's worked with who have had a lot of anxiety and stress and were disconnecting from the family kind of. And what they figured out was that the parents had the TV on all the time and the news was on, and the child was just getting more and more anxious about this world, this, terrible world that he lived in, and so I think we just have to be mindful about what is coming in.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And sometimes that's a lot. Maybe that's all we need, is just to be more aware of what's coming in.
Right. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, the TV was on all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was just a much different time. I mean, now there's a 24-hour news cycle and everything is breaking news and everything is,
yeah. That's true.
urgent and horrible and whatever. And so whereas when I was a kid, some few things were scary, a little bit. I feel like now if we lived in a house where the news was on all the time, that would be really scary.
It would be bad. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and the difference is now a lot of us, we don't watch the news on the TV anymore. It's not on TV, so we don't even have to really hide it. Like, I just read the news on my phone or watch a little clip of a news show or something, but that's like it.
Yeah, right.
So it is different. And I think that's kind of a benefit of having phones now.
It is. I was just remembering something. I bought my kids recently a subscription to Indie News. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about this. It's like a newspaper for young kids.
Yep.
And it comes, I don't even know. I just got my first newspaper, but it comes I think once every couple months.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear about that. How that goes.
Well, you can look at it sometime when you come over. But it's really good. My kids, so the newspaper is sitting out and my kids are reading it, and it's got current, relevant news stories in a form that kids can digest and understand.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So it's geared towards, what age do you think?
I would say, 9 to 14 or 15.
Okay.
I'm just guessing. I have no idea. It's probably maybe a little different, but that's about what I'd say.
Yeah.
My 10 and 12-year-old are into it. My 12-year-old's really into it.
Good.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was in middle school, we watched Channel 1.
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
I did.
With Anderson Cooper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when he was a kid.
He was a kid?
Yeah, well, I think he was a teenager.
Well, he's our age. So.
Yeah, I know. So
so he was our age. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
We watched it in middle school, like every day,
On-
maybe
at
for like
school.
10 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah, our school didn't have that.
Anyway, yeah. So some of the times that I like to talk to our kids about these things is in the car. That's one of my
Okay.
favorite times to talk to our kids, just about
Really?
anything, because everybody's sitting in one place, can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And there's something about driving where you're not like sitting around a table and looking directly at each other, and it just gets kind of intense or something. It can get tough. I don't know, but I think driving the car is just less. There's like less pressure for some reason, I think.
I can see that. The only problem I have with that is I feel like every time I have to talk to my kids when I'm in the car, I'm like yelling back to them. Because do you do that? Are you like yelling back your stuff, or do you mean like when Sean's driving and you can turn around? You mean when you're driving?
I'm driving. We just talk about stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. And then sometimes it's not when all four of the kids are in the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can just be one or two. Maybe we're going somewhere, and then that becomes a little more of an intimate conversation too.
Right.
It can. So I like driving and talking.
Yeah. That's great.
Oh, this is my opportunity.
Yeah. I have a hard time with that because of the yelling, but I do like the sitting around the dinner table talking.
Yeah, okay.
We do that a lot when it's the five of us.
Nice.
And we have great discussions that way. We also do, for some reason, stuff comes up at our read aloud time in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that happen to you too?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think it's because we'll read a picture book about some event or, something in our chapter book sparks a discussion, and we'll have a discussion.
And I'll just tell you, that is a really good skill. A really good reading skill is making connections. So when you're reading and then you make a connection with it to a real life thing, that is
you're
really
right.
doing a lot of learning there.
I wasn't thinking about that.
Good job.
Thanks. I also like to have discussions at bedtime. I mean, well, I don't like to have discussions at bedtime.
But that's when they happen.
That's when they happen.
A lot of discussions happen at bedtime for us.
Yeah.
Not my favorite.
I know.
But I also feel like, hey, this is when they're ready to open up and talk.
Yep. So you got to do it.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Here we go. Or we have talked about this though, Angela, where sometimes at bedtime it can become like a downward spiral because of just the tiredness and the emotions of bedtime.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to just shut it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes that has to get shut down.
I mean, that happens to me personally.
Oh,
If I'm thinking about something, I can get real emotional at bedtime, and then I wake up in the morning, and then I'm like, what was
I know.
Why did I have such a problem with that?
Sometimes Sean will be like, can we talk about this right now? And I'll be like, you do not want to talk to me about this right now. It's not going to go well. I can just tell. Let's talk about it tomorrow.
You need to sleep on it.
I need to sleep on it. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't bring up, we don't talk about like anything scary at bedtime. This is just more tame.
Well, I have one of my, when I put one of my kids to bed too, I can't even talk too much about how much I love her. Aww. She starts crying. She will cry. I mean, just, so it has to be a real surfacey.
Side hug.
Peck on the cheek. And like my voice just has to be cheerful. Yeah. It can't be sentimental whatsoever. So anyway, so we have to know the time. We always have to like know the good times. I mean, and I'm still learning.
Right. And you know each individual kid.
Exactly.
And I think feel good about whatever it is you're doing.
So I just have to stop here and just tell all you parents, do you know how complicated this is? Like, you are doing such high level work here.
Yeah.
As parents, as homeschool parents, above that, like, you're doing so much, and you just have to give yourself credit for that.
Yeah.
These conversations and just even figuring out each child and how it's going to work for them is a complicated skill that you are developing as a parent. And
Yeah.
then above all the other things that you're doing, I mean,
Yep.
you just have to give yourself credit, give yourself grace for not doing it perfectly, and give yourself time off from doing it all. And
Right.
just- yeah.
You're right. You've said this before, maybe just to me. I don't know if you've said it on the podcast, but this is a very nuanced,
Yeah. I know.
complicated job.
Yes.
I mean, think about if you were hiring somebody for this job
I know.
to talk to talk to your kids about stuff and teach them
You'd
stuff.
never, right,
and
exactly.
You couldn't hire somebody.
You couldn't.
No.
I know.
Yeah.
So
So
good job, everybody.
You're right.
You're all doing a great job,
Yeah.
and keep it up.
Yeah.
And give yourself, credit where you deserve it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we talk about? So I know you talked a little bit about simplicity parenting
Yes.
as being a good resource, and I
Mhm.
agree. There's a chapter in there, filtering out the adult world, that
Yes.
is really good.
It is so
And in
good.
fact, we did a 3-part podcast on the Simplicity Parenting book,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure which part that was in, but I will find out and put it in the show notes.
Yes,
It's either
good.
part 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. I think it's
You
part
could
3
go-
because it's the last chapter.
I felt like it was part 3 also. Okay.
Yep, it's the
So
last
you
chapter.
could go back and listen to that episode 2 where we talk about that. Another good resource that I really love is Sparkle Stories. We've talked about Sparkle Stories lots on here. I've sung their
Mhm.
praises.
I know.
But they do such a good job when something happens in the news that's difficult to talk about, or, any issue, like any kind of issue that kids are going through,
Yeah.
like moving or, friendships or
Yeah.
whatever. There'll be a story kind of related to it, and
Yes.
so well done.
And
so
sometimes it's even not even something like that, but it's something that actually is happening in the world. Like some kind of tragedy can happen, and then they'll have a story not about that specific tragedy, but it will bring up something, an issue in a much smaller context,
right.
in a context that a child can understand.
Yep.
So going through these big things, but putting it into something that a kid can handle.
Yeah.
I
They do
just
such
love
a good
them.
job.
I
Yep.
just love them.
So if you are not a member of Sparkle Stories, you can get like I think it's a free 15-day trial. And you can, if you do that, you can do in the search function. Like
Yeah.
you can search for like, I don't know, whatever keywords there are, and stories will pop up,
Mm-hmm.
and you could give it a try that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love them so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for fumbling through that conversation with
know.
me.
Yep. And remember, you will be fumbling. It's okay.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
okay. We all do it.
Yep.
We're all
Yep.
fumbling with you.